Good evening and welcome to State of the Nation here on ETV Ghana. My name is Bismarck Brown. We're broadcasting live on the continent of Africa and indeed across the globe. Tonight, State of the Nation extends its diagnostic lenses beyond the borders of Ghana, and we talk about the continent of Africa and our preparedness towards fighting terrorism. If you recall, just this Saturday, shabaab, a terrorist group, took hostage took hostage of people who were patronizing the Westgate Mall in Kenya, Nairobi. We all heard, we all saw the issues that came up as a result of that terror attack. Now, the question we ask tonight is Africa ready for this emerging danger? America has had its own share of terror attacks. Indeed, it shook the foundations of the world in terms of security and all of that. Tonight, we turn our attention to the continent of Africa and the emerging danger of terror attacks. And of course, as we do for you every evening, we'll soon link you to that documentary put together by the production team of State of the Nation. But you're free to join us tonight with your comments, your thoughts. If you have ideas as to how the continent can brace itself up in readiness for terrorism on the continent, kindly feel free and let's be part of that discussion tonight. 020-222-061 is your WhatsApp line. Let's have a feel of your thoughts. Well, you're free to also join us on our Facebook page, State of the Nation /Facebook. Go there, post a comment. We'll certainly read all of them for you. Now let's have a feel of what Aisha Ibrahim, producer of this program, has put together, just to give us a sense of what is on our hands.
Saturday, September 21, 2013 will forever be remembered as one of the days Ghana lost an industrial son, Professor Kofi Awuno. The unfortunate shootout by Al-Shabaab militants in which he met his untimely death at the Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi, Kenya, has been widely condemned by the international community. Reports indicate that at least 67 people died in this horrific incident. The group, however, say it had carried out the attack in retaliation of Kenyan army operations in Somalia. The militant group, which is linked to al-Qaeda, has repeatedly threatened attacks on Kenyan soil if the country did not pull its troops out of Somalia. There are about 4,000 Kenyan troops in the south of Somalia as part of an African Union force supporting Somali government forces. Though the Kenyan military has been able to arrest 10 suspected militants and killed 5, Ghana and other African countries are beginning to consider their involvement with countries that are being attacked by militants. The question now remains whether Ghana as a country should pull out of support for other African countries to avert such horrors or to beef up intelligence to ensure such a thing never happens in Ghana. But no matter the case, Ghana cannot also live in isolation, but to mingle with other African countries. If that happens, what then will be the implications if the country continues with its ties with countries where these groups have taken over? As it stands now, we ask, what is the state of the nation with regards to the prevention of Islamist militants' activities in Ghana and ensuring security at public places?
So that's the question on our minds this evening, and you're part of it. 020-222-061. Feel free and be part of our discussion tonight. I have with us this evening Ibad Ibrahim. He's an expert on Middle East and political Islam. Good evening, Ibad, and thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Bismarck. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Well, good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
We also have with us this evening Wing Commander Patrick Sogbojo, retired, a security expert and a former jet fighter pilot. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm good.
Good to have you on the show. Well, tonight we're going beyond Ghana and we're exploring and indeed finding out what the magnitude of the situation is on our hands. I'll start with you, Ibad. Give us a sense of this whole understanding. We're told in most of the terrorist attacks that Islam seemed to be the center stage. There seemed to be a certain reason within Islam that backs the actions taken by terrorists. Is there history to this?
First of all, I would like to add my voice to the myriad voices reverberating around the world. As Ghanaian Muslims, we condemn what has happened in Kenya. It is reprehensible, and it is not representative of the multitudes of peace-loving Muslims around the world. These people are a pariah group. They don't belong to the mainstream. They have extremist ideas, and therefore they do not represent us. Certainly, you can't use a religious scripture as the basis for carrying out atrocious acts, similar to the barbaric attack we have seen in Nairobi in recent days. When you even look at the Quran, chapter 3, verse 52, if you will permit me, من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل أنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا. Thus did we decree unto the children of Israel that if anybody unlawfully took away the soul of an innocent person, the magnitude of the sin of such a fellow is as though the person has exterminated the whole of humanity. And in the same vein, if you saved the life of one single person, your reward is commensurate with the reward of someone who has saved the whole of humanity. So Islam encourages the saving of lives. It doesn't encourage the arbitrary taking away of lives. So we condemn what has happened. Jihad. There seems to be a misapplication of the word jihad. First, when we heard of suicide bombings, we felt like suicide bombings took place in far-flung areas like the rugged terrains of Afghanistan and Pakistan. But the fight seems to be inching ever closer to us. Africa is now awash with militant groups. Northern Africa is volatile because there is a franchise of Al Qaeda there called Al Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb that terrorizes Algeria and other areas. Then East Africa is reeling from the activities of Al Shabaab. And unfortunately, our own West African sub-region has got the challenges of Boko Haram as well. So these are a disenchanted group that feel like they should settle their score with the international community through the barrel of the gun instead of being chaperoned into an area where we can discuss diplomacy. But as much as possible, the time has come for African leaders to take a path, and that path has to be decisive. I've heard Uhuru Kenyatta, his rhetoric seems to be one of defiance, that they are going to escalate the war in Somalia. They are going to go for the perpetrators of that crime. But as much as possible, our leaders should not allow foreign powers to make us fight their proxy wars. Some of the wars are completely political. They are irreligious. They have nothing to do with religion. And therefore, we should be able to differentiate between hardcore terrorists and those who are open to dialogue and peace.
All right. Let me come to you, Wing Commander. You are a security expert. Give us a sense of what the continent is up against. If we say terrorism, if we say insecurity on the continent of Africa in this fashion, what are we up against as a continent?
Well, the continent is up against an imported type of terrorists because Africa is quite a humble, non-belligerent. But if you look at what is happening in the Maghreb areas, now sweeping across East Africa, they all have appendages to the Al Qaeda syndrome, which are also come up because of wars which have inflicted on them. If I take myself as a former pilot in a jet and I'm asked to go and bomb a particular house, and I make a second miscalculation, I'm going to drop bombs on the wrong area. And definitely those I'm going to kill will rise up against me. If you go into what is happening in Pakistan, let's go back to Afghanistan, or what even started from Iraq. If Iraq had not been attacked, judicious intelligence had been gathered. At the time they wanted to go in, they were told Saddam had bombs, even though they knew they didn't have bombs. They went in. So the general impression created is that the Western world, or part of it, is against Islam. And of course, those who cannot have a proper education, that maybe those who are invading for their own parochial interest, then this was bound to happen. the world might find a way to tackle this issue. You can never achieve peace through the barrel of the gun. You have to sit down and negotiate. I think that's the way it should be.
Do you negotiate with terrorists?
Well, if they will sit down. I mean, last week in Indonesia, Philippines, this war has been going for a while, but they signed accords in Philippines with the other faction, and things are going well. But as my colleague said, if we are going to allow ourselves to do proxy war, then of course the backlash should be there. If we want to go into this al-Shabaab issue, once you go back as far back 1998, the Kenyan bombings, Kenyans felt their country was being threatened. Their main source of income is partly tourism. And if Kenya was unsafe, nobody was going to go there to go and do any tourism for them to get their money. So it became expedient for the powers be to use Kenya to attack Mogadishu, to attack al-Shabaab. Even though al-Shabaab started as a small splinter group within a political party who wanted power in Somalia. But of course, wanting power, they also needed ammunition, weaponry, and money. And qaeda was ready to supply them. So once you attack them, they're opening your front. So this is what we must guard against.
Ivan, let me come to you.
Okay,
when Commander mentions the fact that this is an imported war, you also make the point that we seem to be fighting proxy wars. I'm not too sure what you would call a proxy war when indeed Boko Haram, al-Shabaab have their own reasons for perpetrating the crimes they are perpetrating, not linked to what you would call proxy war, what is happening between Iraq and, for instance, the United States.
You see, the Middle East is a crucible of most of the wars that are being fought around the world today, and it's quite understandable. The region is quite contested. It is the cradle of all the three major religions. Christ was born in there, and Prophet Muhammad was born in the Middle East as well. And then Moses, who is representative of the Jewish people, was also born in there. So the United States was attacked on 9/11 in a way they had never been attacked in their own backyard. Not even the Pearl Harbor attacks perpetrated by the Japanese cost us many lives, as did the attacks of 9/11. So the US was torn between two difficult choices, either to play the path of leniency or react with a certain disproportionate force to send a deterrent message to the rest of the international community. So immediately they invaded and dislodged the Taliban from Kabul, Afghanistan. So the Afghan war could have been justifiable because all the evidence they had pointed to the fact that perhaps Osama bin Laden and his cohorts were the masterminds of the 9/11 attacks. But the war in 2003 against Saddam Hussein was uncalled for. It was unnecessary. It wasn't based upon any actionable intelligence. And that gave some people in the Muslim world the opportunity to come up with a narrative that the war America was fighting couldn't have been a war against a French group or an ideology like al-Qaeda, but it was rather against the Islamic religion. So at a point in time, Osama bin Laden himself said so boastfully that if the war in Afghanistan was a school, then the insurgency in Iraq was a university. So the people who have come back to fight America are the people who have gone to prop up the insurgency in Iraq and elsewhere. But let's try our best and categorize the jihadists or so-called terrorists. Arab jihadists are not ready to negotiate with the international community.
I might just give you a second there. I have on the line Dr. Vlad Benchudan. So he's a research fellow, a senior research fellow at LESIA. Let me just introduce him on the line. I'll get back to you. Good evening, Dr. Vlad Benchudan, and thanks for joining us on State of the Nation.
Good evening.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good.
Sure. Thanks for joining us. We're having a lively discussion about what the continent is confronted with as far as terror attacks are concerned and what the continent can do to brace itself up for this matter. And I'll soon get back to you and pick your thoughts on this particular matter as soon as Ibad is done with his comments.
Yeah. So let's try
Come
our
again.
best.
You said you come back to me.
Yes, kindly hold on. I'll get back to you soon, sir.
Yeah, so there are two shades of global jihadis. For the Arabs that are ensconced in the rugged terrains of Afghanistan, they are called Al-Qaeda Central. They are purely Arabs, and they are currently led by Ayman al-Zawahiri, the one who succeeded Osama bin Laden. Then we have Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which is in Yemen and elsewhere. Then we have Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. These are indigenous Arabs, and their history, their record has not shown that they have a willingness to sit around the negotiation table with the international community. Okay. But other groups that are non-Arab, like Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab, may give us the opportunity to discuss diplomacy.
Okay, let me go on to Dr. Vladimir Chidan. So, Doc, there seems to be a sense around the discussions we're having that what is happening on the continent as far as terror attacks are concerned is imported. It seems to be proxy war. Do you agree with that, or this is probably Africa's own unique terror attack?
No, I wouldn't say they are proxy wars as such. The point is that terrorism is taking on a new dimension because of a certain specific phenomenon which is developing. The terrorism is not a new phenomenon in the world. It's not something which is now brewing. It started long ago. And terrorist acts have been recorded in history to a side. But of late, what is happening is what we see, or what we normally call the clash of civilizations. Beyond the fall of communism and the end of the Cold War, we have seen a certain tendency where the triumph or the seeming triumph of neoliberal policies or neoliberalism is creating a one-sidedness of the world where values are clashing. For example, when we talk of democracy, some people just believe that democracy is a certain Western kind of democracy. And if we are not feeling that, then we're creating problems for the world, because those areas where that kind of democracy is not coming, we want to force them. And in the Arab world, that is exactly what is happening. As soon as there are problems, we see America jumping or the West jumping, say, pro-democracy forces. Invariably, the so-called pro-democracy forces are not pro-democracy forces. And Islam is trying to find a way to assert itself in a world which is fast changing. And this is the crux of the matter. So whether Boko Haram or Al-Shabaab or anything, they are trying to tack on religion, values that are alien to Western democracy. And then you have this kind of terrorist attacks, innocent people dying, just to make a statement. So
Doc,
it's not a new phenomenon. They are not fighting any war on behalf of anybody. They're trying to make a statement.